And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We're talking all of the news coming out of the Singapore Grand Prix. From Lando Norris, championship contender, to Alex Albon finally having some difficulty with a teammate at Williams. Yeah, thanks Colapinto. And that's 6 months before Carlos Sainz come to Max Verstappen getting community service and being on the very much naughty step. So, welcome. So let's talk about our first story here on planetf1.com. And Verstappen has been warned that the FIA battle serves no good purpose after his Singapore Grand Prix protest. So Max Verstappen was fighting, as we know, not only an on-track battle, but the two biggest stories in the Singapore Grand Prix wasn't really what was happening on the track. The biggest one, arguably, was Max Verstappen versus the FIA, all about swear words, and then Daniel Ricciardo. We'll have a separate video on the Ricciardo thing. But ahead of the Singapore Grand Prix, as you may or may not know, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, he announced a clampdown on naughty language, let's say. And the first of all foul, this was during a press conference, was Max Verstappen in his RB20 using the F word during Thursday's press conference. And as a result, Verstappen was ordered to carry out a work of public interest. And as a result of that, he ended up keeping his answers very short during the post-qualified press conference. After making the front row. And former F1 driver turned pundit Brundle is at a loss as to why Verstappen, though, is choosing to take this route. He said, "I'm not sure why Max is allowing himself to get distracted and dragged into the swearing battle with the FIA. It's wasted energy, serves no good purpose for him, but he still largely wouldn't answer any questions in the post-race press conference." So, what does that mean? Well, Brundle goes on to say the drivers are not kids. I accept. We know they'll sometimes swear in an attempt to have radio messages not transmitted. And of course they will say, don't broadcast our radio calls if you don't like our language. It may be street language, but they represent themselves, families, countries, global icons. They are icons. But many people are supporting Max Verstappen. So what happened at the Singapore Grand Prix? He refused to answer most of the questions, albeit with one-word small answers in the press conferences, indicating that outside the press conference he will give the answers. And at that point, a media scrum followed him all the way around to the point where it got to the point where Red Bull ended up having to create their own space for Max Verstappen's own personal press conference. I appreciate this can't continue. To be fair to Max, fair play on his stubbornness on this one. If he thinks he's really been wrong done. I don't think, personally, you should be swearing in a press conference. Team radio, a bit naughty, but it's sport, I guess, and it's the choice of the broadcaster to protest it. But giving him some kind of community service as a result, absolutely ridiculous. When you look at some of the stuff that has happened on the track, dangerous driving, etc., if you want any community service, you look at things like that, the silliness that has happened on the track rather than a swear word. Okay, maybe ask him to apologise, but still, community service, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, from one fracker to two people who may be now friends. Yes, can you imagine a world where Zach Brown and Christian Horne are wearing matching pyjamas, making friends? They shared a snap with the Red Bull team principal, did the McLaren CEO, revealing they cleared the air following a last lap fiasco in Singapore. And then says it in true F1 fashion, peace talks between McLaren CEO Zach Brown and Red Bull boss Christian Horne took place at 30,000 feet in a first-class plane. The pair, who can maybe be best described as frenemies, it says here, boarded the same flight to go back to the UK from the Singapore Grand Prix. They slipped into matching airline pyjamas. And I can't quite see. There we go. There's the picture. I mean, imagine that. Zach Brown and Christian Horne are friends. And this comes, not 2 years ago in 2022, where Zach Brown was accusing Christian Horne and Red Bull of cheating due to the cost cap, which I think is really interesting. And there we go. The note saying, peace in F1 has been restored on the flight home. Where's Netflix when you need them? But the battle will continue on the track. What an awesome sport. Brown later told reporters he was planning to query Ricciardo's final lap, though, and we'll get into that in a bit as well. As in, was it a good thing? Was it controversial? Anyway, that's nice. Moving on. Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, he battled. And this is interesting because at the beginning of the race, I was like, what is Lewis Hamilton doing on those soft tyres? I mean, what? And he said he was so angry with his team's decision to put him on soft tyres at the start of the race. He fell from third of the grid to finishing what was sixth. His teammate George, who started alongside him on the medium, was one of the 3 drivers who gained a place from him during the race. Hamilton said Mercedes raised the possibility of splitting the strategies between the 2 drivers. And Lewis said, we sat in our meeting in the morning of the race. Actually, the night before, they already mentioned that they would like to split the cars. And for me, I was a bit perplexed. Hamilton explained at an event. He said, in the past, we've been in that position. Normally, if George had qualified well, like he normally does, and I'm out of the top 10 or something, we split the strategies. But when we are so close, it doesn't make sense. So I battled as hard as I could to fight to go on the medium tyre, but the team continued to suggest that I start on the soft. And they took the tyre blankets off and everyone was on mediums. And Hamilton was the only driver in the top 13 to start on soft. So, they got the chart there, but yeah. And he said, already from that moment, I'm frustrated, said Hamilton. Then I tried my best to keep up with the guys ahead. They were too fast, and then I just tried to make the tyre last as long as I could. And pitting on lap 17, I knew from that moment on my race was done. What were Mercedes thinking when even the casual fan sitting on the couch was like, what? Yeah, sad. And even Toto has now come out and said, it was a really painful evening as he admits that Mercedes were just too slow. Yeah, he watched his drivers slog their way around the Marina Bay. I mean, one of the reasons they were slow, Toto, is because he gave them the wrong strategy. He said, I think we read the race wrong, Wolff admitted. We took a decision on historic data that this race was basically a progression Monaco-like, and that the soft tyre would give Hamilton an opportunity at the start, basically the only overtaking opportunity. And he said, and that was a decision we took together jointly. That's not what Hamilton says. But with the rear tyre deg we had, there was only one way, and that was backwards. So I think there was logic behind it, but it was contrary to what we should have decided. Yeah, I think they need to. I think their strategy people need to go on a basic training session after that. I mean, oh dear. So we got the McLaren boss. He addresses the Ricciardo's fastest lap snatch in Coalition Championship. And I thought this was interesting because this definitely did the rounds on the interwebs after the race. And as we know, if you watch the race, denied by the fastest lap point was McLaren's Lando Norris, because it was Red Bull's junior team, V-Carb, Daniel Ricciardo, and Andrea Stella. He did stop short of calling the Red Bull teams out on sportsmanship, but he insisted F1 cannot be a coalition championship. Now, although Norris took a further 7 points out of Verstappen's lead in the Drivers' Championship by winning the Singapore Grand Prix ahead of the Dutchman, it could have been 8, but for a late fastest lap. And we know they are in a championship fight. This is a big matter. He told me, as soon as you invoke sportsmanship, I think you need to approach this with a sense of responsibility. Yeah, that's from Andreas Stella, the McLaren team principal. He said, I don't know the facts. I just saw that the Racing Bulls went for the fastest laps and achieved it. But for me, here, talk about sportsmanship and so on, I think it would be out of place. So I think we have to take it at face value. They scored a fastest lap. Yes, and he said, potentially as part of a longer-term conversation, we need to put the sport in a position in which at any stage, being it trackside or being factory teams, behave in totally autonomous matter. This is a Constructors' Championship, a Drivers' Championship. It is not a Coalition Championship. Oh, shots fired from Andrea Stella. And I agree with him. Now, I'm not saying that Ricciardo shouldn't have gone for the fastest lap, but we do need some clarity. I mean, it almost would be in everyone's best interest if Red Bull and V-Carb were completely separate teams, but we all know they are not. So, last but not least, we've got Alexander Albon. He's facing, from the racer, a career-defining test 6 months early. And that's 6 months early prior to Sainz coming on. I thought this was quite an interesting thing to talk about. So, Alex Albon knows, as well as any other F1 driver, what having a tough teammate's like. He's been up against Max Verstappen. In fact, as it said here, it almost destroyed his career until he went to Williams. From his first season with Williams, he's been frustrated at having to do the lion's share of the work. And on one hand, that's left him solely responsible for the Williams' rise or fall at the constructors' table. But on the other, it's left him as the undisputed team leader, everyone singing Albon's praises. If you remember, at the beginning of the year, he was one of the favourites to replace Perez for next year. Anyway, Albon's become accustomed to obliterating teammates. Latifi, for example, not particularly good, and Logan Sargent. The lack of competition was always going to change, though, when Carlos Sainz was coming over. But it's happened a tiny bit earlier, because we've got Colapinto, and let's be fair, Sensational start to the season, sensational dive bomb, and he's put pressure on Albon in 3 weekends. More pressure on Albon, it says here, in 3 weekends than Sargent did in 37. He was on Albon's pace at Monza, but bulked under the pressure on his first qualifying session. That decided the weekend, but Colapinto didn't make a mistake in Baku as he got through Q3 and beat Albon, who was denied due to airbox gate. Given how close they were to prior to Q3, it's debatable on who would have won. I mean, this is amazing for it, isn't it? Albon was the stronger driver in the race, but Colapinto brilliantly followed him home in 8th place at the last race. But now, Singapore proved Baku was no outlier, and if anything, Colapinto took another step forward. He was just 7,000 shy of Albon in qualifying, despite not having the suspension upgrade. And they said, but he did what he'd done the opening lap. One day later was arguably the greatest moment of so far his career, sending his Williams down the inside of multiple cars at turn 1, getting it stopped and making the corner. And they said it wouldn't be hyperbolic to claim that that's the boldest legal move a rookie has pulled since some of Verstappen's finest move in 2015. There was a pretty nice gap and I went for it and it worked out, Colapinto said. Albon admitted upon reviewing the race he was initially upset at first when you heard him on the radio, but to be fair to him, he said nothing to criticise about Colapinto's move. But there's no escaping the fury over the radio. He was quite upset, wasn't he? Now, the first hint of pressure, this is the first hint of pressure that it's putting on Albon. And yes, he'd been thinking about Williams' own tight championship battle, but he's a racing driver, it says. Given the way it's going to pan out, I think it's going to be really interesting going into the rest of the year. And it kind of concludes saying there's still a question mark over where Colapinto can replicate his form across a string of more conventional tracks. As you know, in 4 weeks, what is that? What is that about? That 4-week gap. But in 4 weeks, we've got Austin, Mexico, Brazil, triple header. But on the evidence of his brief career so far, Colapinto may well give Alex Albon a massive run for his money, which makes me very happy. So, if you like what you see, please give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. And stay safe, stay tuned, hit that notification button as well if you are subscribed so you don't miss a video. And we will speak to you soon. As I try and hit the right button. Yay, found it.